Good morning and welcome to Industrial Marketing Collective Live. This is an interactive web show hosted by the Industrial Marketing Collective. I'm Peyton Warren, the marketing director at the industrial marketing agency Gorilla 76, and I am one of your IMC Live hosts. Marketers often find themselves as the taskmaster behind company events, be that a trade show or an open house, a plant tour, or maybe even like a customer appreciation party. And while there are times that these events just need to happen, there are also times when that's like a huge opportunity to level up their experience and make some seriously memorable pathways with your customers. Um, which really brings us into the conversation that we need to have today, which is all about experiential events and thinking through creative PR that you can build with your customers. So, enter today's guest, Chris Casey. He is the founder and effectuator at CJC Works, an experiential marketing company based in Wisconsin, USA. Chris has spent almost his entire career in experiential marketing. If you hadn't heard of that before, it is a thing. It's not just Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
But he has been overseeing event programs ranging from lifestyle to hospitality, sports, live entertainment, PR stunts to digital and virtual projects, all sorts of things. Chris has managed and executed experiential sponsorship programs too for top Fortune 500 brands on world stage events like the Olympics and the World Cup. He's also done brand activation takeovers for sports super events like the Super Bowl or the MLB. I'm not a sports person, folks. All Stars games and the US Open Series. So that's all pretty impressive, right? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, Chris, thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome to the show. We're
Well,
really glad
thanks
to
for
have you
having
here.
me. Thanks for having me. And that was great from just riffing that, Peyton. So
Yeah,
I
yeah, you
really
can tell.
appreciate that.
Yeah. We've had a couple of conversations, and I've had a great time in every single one. But I think like the best place to start, I would really love for you just to tell folks a little bit more about yourself. I know I interviewed you a little bit, but like tell us more. Um,
All right. Well, first of all, hello everybody. I see some faces. So any questions, as Peyton mentioned, we want it to be kind of a free-flowing opportunity for everybody. I have been fortunate. I started shortly out of college. I went into started working for an agency. It was a small agency at that time, and I was 20 years and helped grow that agency. I think I was the 20th employee. When I left, there were probably about 2,500 employees. So I was fortunate enough to see something grow from the ground up to be, and then, when you get big clients, you get big opportunities. So it really, ran the gamut. When we first started, it was small little activations, and then we built that up into doing Super Bowls. From Super Bowls, it went into World Cup into Olympics, and being on we're seeing depart out we're department as well. So kind of look, as I was kind of growing. When you have a small company, you're really hungry, you see an opportunity, you're like, we can make that happen. We looking to everybody around you going, we haven't done that yet, but we'll figure it out somehow, way, shape, or form. And just that experience I've been able to kind of bring with me through, all these opportunities. I'd say about 10, maybe just under 10 years ago, I left that big agency and just started up my own company just for the opportunity to see what else was out there and just to do different work from a different perspective, and just get to work on some clients that I wanted to work with. Having been at that big agency, I have had an opportunity of working with hundreds of people that have come and gone, and those folks that I've built a relationship with have really been the backbone to bringing me new business and opportunities. I don't do a whole lot of sales outreach. My website, which is okay.
He's
Honestly,
like, don't judge me, all
yeah,
of you marketers.
yeah, don't judge my website. It's really, I haven't updated the website in about 4 years, 3, 4 years now. But because really, those opportunities that I have just, word of mouth, you do a good job, the opportunities keep presenting themselves. I've a ton, a lot of clients, reoccurring projects every year. And, those projects run the gamut. Some those projects, from an agency perspective, I've come in as a holistic producer, or depending on the scope of the project, a lot of those will come in as an executive producer to help kind of wrangle the project from overseeing, parts of the creative, overseeing the production, overseeing the procurement, and doing the client management piece as well. So it really comes around to what the project entails and what is needed for that. But again, I've been fortunate enough to work on varying size projects from the 10 by 10 trade show booth, which I still have a few of those, up to and what I'm working on currently. I've got the YouTube project I'm working on, which we launch in a couple weeks, is for VidCon. Working with an agency on that, supporting that piece. And then, as you and I talked about, another client of mine, which is kind of my fun client, is Rock and Brews. It's a restaurant chain that is owned by the two leading members of KISS, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. So they have a lot of restaurants opening, so I help them with their restaurant openings. And then, of course, there's some performances by the gentleman, which we have one coming up, as Peyton and I were talking about, in her neck of the woods, middle of nowhere in Wyandotte, Oklahoma. So we've got a concert with Gene Simmons. And then I think next week, I don't want to say, I know next week I've got a Grubhub project. I'm working on a multi-city Grubhub project with, it's a TV show that's on HBO. I'm not at liberty to say, but it's usually has four girls in it, and they live in New York, and it's all about their stuff. There's a fictional bread store that we're recreating in four different cities, so we're kind of doing that project. So it's kind of
When
fun.
when does that announcement come out? Because this is going to publish on YouTube in like 2 days. Is that all right?
Yeah, that'll be fine. That'll be fine.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's really what I'm hearing is, like you've built a huge book of business on repeat work. And all of what you're doing is this like genre of experiential marketing. And I think you used a word even that I just learned as I've been getting more and more into the event space with the Industrial Marketing Summit. Um, Air quotes here, activation. I think I'm interested in like two things. Well, I'm interested in a lot, but like just from building on what you've said so far, uh, what is the real value of doing something that you would call an experiential event? Like why do your clients come back to you in the first place? Like they did it once and they didn't just say, okay, that was cool, but like they must have got something out of it, right?
Sure.
So what makes these sorts of events so valuable?
Well, I think, there's a twofold. We have the B2B consumer aspect of it, and you have the B2C, the B2 consumer. So really it's bringing, and almost in both worlds, depending on what your product is or your brand is bringing that, elevating that brand into it becomes part of, oh, I need to be looking out for this. Oh, this brand has a product that I enjoy. Uh, didn't win this business, but earlier this year, working with an agency for Chobani, they wanted to do millions of samplings, get the new product out into people's hands. They had a price point that they wanted to reach with that, and we developed a plan to be able to, around the country, have this product distributed free of charge, just getting the product into people's hands, letting them taste it. Because you really don't, in the B2C, you really don't have a lot of those opportunities. If you go into the grocery store and you see these, six packs of soda, water, um, whatever it may be, do you really want to buy that whole thing knowing that you might not like it? Well, these were these sampling events or these product, getting the activations, getting these the product out where people can see it, touch it, feel it, talk to a brand ambassador, talk to a brand manager, and really understand it. As it works for the B2B, um, just finished up a project for ServiceNow. I was a floor manager for the show, but really bringing people from around the world in there to see the latest developments within their platform. I didn't have anything to do with that. It was really just, the activation on site, bringing these stages to life, making sure the speakers were there, the infrastructure was there. But again, it's a destination for these folks, and it's an opportunity for people to rally, to get together, talk about the product, an opportunity for the clients to share the latest updates, and it's done not virtually, but firsthand.
Hmm. Could you tell us more about how you've been able to bring that experience around for like manufacturing clients?
You know, there are certain shows in manufacturing where, they're in the manufacturing world, it is traditional, the trade show aspect of it. Getting into that booth, having display products there, having an opportunity, for people to see and hear your latest innovations, latest developments. Where we've tried to do some of that is through a lot of digital pieces, whether it's VR, whether it's, web-based opportunities for them to see that. The manufacturing world is a unique one, just because of you could have a Caterpillar uh, heavy piece of equipment. How do you bring that to life? Well, there's one or two big shows a year, but now you want to make that engaging. Again, looked at doing something with them a couple of years ago. It was Cat locally, and we were looking to partner up with an energy drink with their motorcycle team and just kind of do a big PR event on site. Again, that was more for awareness and bringing more of an opportunity to them of from a using that brand in particular. I don't know if I can be saying these names, so we'll have to talk about that after. But they really wanted to. You've got a group of operators that are aging out of that, of an operation standpoint of that are in their 50s and 60s, but they want to bring in a new youthful group of operators for heavy equipment. So what's the way to do that? We were looking at, action sports, we were looking at things and their partnership of that. Action sports needs heavy equipment. We were looking at them to bring the heavy equipment to them as a parlay hey, you need to build a motorcycle course. Here, we're donating the equipment. As part of that donating of equipment, we want to see, the riders wearing the names. We want to see riders mentioning them, maybe even at dealerships, bringing them to the dealerships as a kind of a fun, functional PR thing. So I don't know that I answered your question entirely because, there's, if it becomes down to a nut and bolt kind of example, I'd really have to kind of think of how you would make a fun opportunity with that. But again, just trying to think big picture in relation to that question.
Well, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Alan, did you have a follow-up?
oh no, I do like that positive association. Like, okay, there might be a group of kids who wish that they got to be motocross riders, but at least you can like associate working with this equipment as something that is pivotal to that industry, and in some way, kind of in your brain, still feel like you're related to something that you liked as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's about making those connections. And I'm not going to say that I'm not the creative genius. There are people that do that for a living, but it's really supporting that idea with back-ending that with, okay, that's an idea. How do we activate it? Let's try to bring that idea to life. And that's what I enjoy. I mean, the big ideas, there are people much smarter than me and much more in tune with their products. But if you've got an idea, then let's see how we can bring that to life. And that's where another piece that I love to jump in on.
Yeah, I think something you brought up in our last conversation was like this thought that sheer entertainment value has value. And like we need to think beyond like the booth at a trade show, and like, okay, so you're gonna have a trade show, you're gonna have like this audience gathering. how do you then enhance that opportunity with something extra, be it, a product feature in your 10 by 10 booth
Yeah.
or something else, like, because, you know, trade show floors have their limitations, right? Like you can only do so much, especially if like you've got your budget constraints and you do have just that 10 by 10 space and you don't want to pay for all the extra um, electrical work to get extra power and, yada, yada, yada. Um, but I guess like, where would you start, Chris, if you were like, okay, I'm going to be at this trade show. I want to um, create something more. Uh,
Well,
how would you start brainstorming around that?
that's a great question. You have limitations too. There are budget constraints if you're doing a show floor 10 by 10, 10 by 20. If you want to do anything overhead, there's rigging for sign, for the labor and the signs overhead. And I liken it to, I walk up and I meet somebody for the first time. I call it the grip and grin. You smile, you shake their hand, maybe you get a card, but there's a lot of times you forget that information almost immediately. Where's the leave behind, or where is that connection that brings that value around, so it becomes memorable, so it becomes topical, and that you realize that, oh, this is something that I need, or I would like to partner with, or I need to integrate something into our business faction. There has to be that unique connection, because otherwise you're lost in the sea of everybody else that's trying to do the same thing.
Hmm.
How do you separate yourself? And again, it really is, it's beyond the trade show booth. You do the trade show booth because you have to. There's a presence there. There's the opportunity to meet people. But where are the gains after that? Are you doing name collection? Great. So then you're doing an email blast after that, and then you're doing a follow-up. But how are you connecting that end dot so then there's a continued conversation beyond?
Hmm. Yeah, I think you talked about another example too, like, and we've talked about this a lot, especially this year, like the short attention spans of folks. And so it's like, how do you keep them engaged? And we were talking a little bit more about this other initiative that you did that was more in like the automotive sector. Like, I think it was like a ride and drive or
Oh
something
yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. Can you tell folks a little bit more about like the concept there?
There was an auto show that we were looking to move from its traditional location, which is a convention center, and taking it out of the convention center into a new stadium. Ultimately, the goal was, from the show organizer and from a lot of the car dealerships, the intent was it butts in seats. When you talk about, an auto show, people walk around, they look at the latest cars, they look at the new Corvette, look at the new Range Rover, whatever it may be. And there are some cases where this doesn't work because you don't want them people test driving a $200,000 car. But when it comes to Chevy, Honda, Nissan, they want their butts and seats. They want people to do a ride and drive. So your traditional auto show is, you go in there, you look at the convention center, you sit in the car, you look at it, look at the new features, you have a brand ambassador telling you about it. But really what they want is to get you outside, put you in that car and do a test drive. So you really get a feel for being in that car, being on the road. And then that has a longer impact, and a better opportunity to sell that car than the really passive experience that they have inside the trade show. It's kind of taking that mentality and just bringing from inside outside to a real world practical. It's a car dealership, but this is more of when you do the auto shows, you have all the car companies there and it's a bigger splash. So, we had looked at doing that. It was right around COVID. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, it sucked up all the money and whatnot. But it's still, there are some car shows, Chicago, I think, and Detroit. are still they have brought some of that out, but it's still a long way from being, a really tried and true process.
That makes me think of the regional trade show stuff that we've done in the past, where we talked about how sometimes one of the big selling points is getting people to just come visit your shop, because and that seems like that might be the equivalent of the ride and drive experience. You get them out of the trade floor show into the actual experience that sells.
100%. We've looked at doing a lot of corporate things and corporate manufacturers where, instead of you have your full team flying out to do this trade show, well, why don't you take that money potentially and then bring in or invest locally at your factory, do tents, do a day full of tours, have people, walk through your manufacturing floor, meet with your sales teams. Again, it's localized where you're not taking your team out of their comfort zone. You're bringing future opportunities and prospects to your facility and just kind of giving them, this is who we are, this is what we do. And there's an investment, but where is the payoff for that? Where do you see that as more, that's more a sound investment? Let's bring these people to us, let's show them what we're doing. And again, there's going to be word of mouth beyond that. And you need to figure out your ROI on it. But I personally feel that that's a better opportunity. What is the cost? The people still might be flying in, but you have hospitality, you have, you still have a display, you still have your opportunity in parking lots, in and around those areas to be able to do things. We've set up 300 by 300, not 300 by 300, 300-foot long tents by 100-foot long tent, that you can do all your opportunities inside that and do it locally, and then do a whole white glove opportunity to your factory.
Yeah, you don't like just because the event is like relegated to like a trade show is like in this one facility doesn't mean that you can't plan something outside of. And I know a lot of people have done this where like it's even just like a happy hour. Like that's a first step, right? Towards something where you're creating like this opportunity for folks to connect and just do something else. But yeah, like you can kind of I guess like what I hope y'all are getting out of this conversation by listening to it is that you kind of think of more of those like pie in the sky sort of things that you could be doing. And it's like, okay, there's a park or there's a lot and we have this piece of equipment. How could we demo it in a different way? Even if you're having to coordinate, um, you know, renting or like reserving a separate facility or a separate like event sent space of some sort
For sure.
alongside like that could be well worth your time. And I think that leads into a question that Brian had in the chat. And Brian, if you want to come on unmuted and ask that yourself, I'll give you a minute here or a couple seconds here to do so. Otherwise I'll jump in. Hey, Brian.
Hey, sure, I'd love to.
Hey,
Yay.
Brian.
Um, so essentially my question is, being industrial, everything is ROI and sales motivated. And so how have you in the past maybe gotten executive buy-in to host events outside of the standard trade show?
That's a great question. Marketing budgets a lot of times are predetermined, which I'm sure you've come into. You've got your allocation for your trade show for one or two or three shows a year, depending on size and scope. You may have different size trade show builds for those at 10 by 10, 10 by 20, 30 by 30, whatever it may be. It's really defining. It's it's an interesting question about budget because it plays back into where do you find your investment. I'm not going to lie that don't always get involved in the higher aspect of that, in the carving out your with my clients, carving out those budgets as far as how are we going to allocate this money for these areas. I usually get involved with, we have an idea, it's a break from our traditional plan because the clients feel that there's stagnation in their numbers. There is there's a new product that comes out and they need to build some buzz around it. Truly, that's where they find the new marketing dollars and an opportunity, to invest in those. It's like, okay, how do we make a splash with this new widget, for an example? Um, and then how do you want to affect the market? Again, I there's usually greater minds involved in that, in developing that, but it's finding those opportunities. And like we said, is it a $10,000 spend? Is it $100,000 spend? Or is it beyond that? And where, it's, I'm trying to parse the question, but I don't know if I can properly answer right now. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, no, if my thought is, if they're motivated by sales and it's like, what's the reason you want to do the experiential event? Is it a product launch? Is it like that new splash, that buzz building that Chris was just talking about? And like, if that's the case, it's like, okay, you're putting extra oomph behind that product launch. Is it like, are you doing a press release alongside of it that then, like now this, because a lot of times we'll write a press release and it's just like company corporate update, the end. And
yeah,
it doesn't even get picked up. It just gets like syndicated across all the newswire stuff and that's it. Well, like what makes a publication want to talk about you? Speaking from like my own, shoot, I was a press secretary in the past. It is so hard to get things picked up unless they are truly newsworthy. So like if you're doing a kick-ass event that is actually going to be fun and interesting and something that community calendars want to put out there and like get picked up, I think like just that earned media and like the reach that you can get from that is like part of like the benefit that you can start to talk to your leadership about, like the built-in brand awareness that's not like in a different channel. If you can get something that's like buzzworthy enough to get picked up, well then that's credibility. Like we all use trade publications already,
yeah.
but oftentimes you're having to pay to get in those trade publications, and those trade publications are also just hungry for good content, good like so give them something to chew on. And you can get placed in something that you would have had to pay. Shoot, a full page ad is $10,000 at least, right?
Yeah.
So if you can get an article written, even if it's just a little blurb because it was just cool, that's
Yeah, we used to
ten
do
thousand
these
dollars of earned media right there.
we used to do these events with Lowe's, and this was a lifetime ago, but there was a Lowe's had partnered up with Habitat for Humanity. So again, there's a cause and effect to that. Lowe's has all the products there, they have everything to support it. And of course, a great opportunity to partner with Habitat for Humanity. They bring in volunteers, and it's it's a feel good, and there's also awareness that's generated from that, from Lowe's. They get the, here are our products, here's what we offer, but look, we're going to do some good for the community as well. So it's, there's an opportunity, and I say an opportunity in a good way, to support your product. Then there's also the flashy one. We've taken over. If you want to, Charmin back in the day took over a storefront in downtown New York, and the whole thing was full of Charmin. Everything was made of paper products, and it was a 2-day display where people came in and got to check it all out. It's just like, why did that happen? It was just like, it was just a PR event for them. I
Mhm.
think I could say that now because it was like 15 years ago. But it was
It's in the
it,
public sphere. It's
yeah,
safe.
it's in the public sphere. But it's like again, they generated buzz. They had this opportunity, a new product launch. Let's get it out there. Let's everybody see, hear it, talk about it, and I'm sure there were some legacy benefits to that. I can't tell you what they are, but it was a splash, And I
Yeah.
think that's what you were talking about. It's the splash that you're looking for.
Yeah, that splash is what's going to actually get you that article in the paper you didn't pay for. Like speaking from someone who used to have to go through a bunch of news releases and be like, nope, that should be an ad, that should be an ad, that should be an ad. Oh, they actually did a thing that people might have gone to and people might remember and might be talking about already. Oh, okay, well that can actually be news.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're just thinking, well, these people are just trying to, take money out of our pockets where they should be paying for an ad.
And I think like Chelsea, you jumped in here in the chat too about like measuring the success. Like what metrics would you focus on? Um, as far as like determining like ROI. Um, I think a lot of this is like similar to just general brand awareness. Chris was mentioning, like why did Lowe's and to Humanity, like Habitat for Humanity, like collaborate? Well, it was like a
There's sim
symbiotic
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
It bolstered the Lowe's brand. It was proof that they are like standing on the values that they say they're standing on. Why does Gorilla do these like webinars twice a month for the past 4 years? It's like, well, we care about relationships. We care about improvement. We want to invest in the industrial marketing community. And like, so we prioritize it. And like, okay, these aren't, I don't know, maybe this isn't like the biggest, like brightest experience you've ever had, but it's something, right? And we're just we're doing it because it's us, it's what we do. And I think that should be enough reason to like support a capital B brand
Mhm.
initiative. But yeah, you got to have money to fund these things and you got to get approval for it. Um, but I think if you position it as a brand awareness play, you've got the information on your forms already, like that. How did you hear about us? Maybe this starts to come up and you can get some like hard facts for like direct attribution. How did you hear about us? Industrial Marketing Collective Live. How did you hear about us? I saw the Charmin display and
That's a
Mhm.
terrible
sort of
example. I wish I wouldn't have given that one, but
no, I think
it
it's
was
No, I
cool.
like that one. I like,
it was
but
just terrible one. It
uh,
was laughable.
that's what makes it good, though. Uh,
Mm.
but Chelsea had another question in the chat that was related to Brian. So do you want to come on, Chelsea, and ask that if you're there?
If there's any builds, yeah, love it.
Yeah, Peyton kind of, brought it up and kind of addressed it to a degree, but yeah, Chris, how would you measure the success of an event like beyond those attendance numbers? As Brian mentioned, you have leadership team that are all obsessed with ROI. So what would be some metrics that you might focus on to determine an ROI on these events?
Oh, that's a tough question, Chelsea, because there are so many touch points that have to be addressed beyond that, and it all depends on the nature of your event that you're doing. If you are doing a face to face, there are the immediate attendance figures. There's we look at, the backtrack of any of the national, local media that picks everything up, the print opportunities, and it's not even print anymore. Now it's all social media that's picked up across the board. And there are ways to track that and follow that. There are companies that specifically do that and let what was the bang for the buck, if you will. Really, if you have an opportunity and it has the idea has legs, it will grow and it'll generate a lot of buzz. There are some really great ideas out there. There are some that, big companies, giant companies just have the money to fund it for the big idea to get it out there. And it's part of their, $100 million marketing budget that they have. And we know that, there's a lot of the industrial companies here have probably a couple 100,000 maybe a year or less. It's finding those opportunities, and I can't give you the magic decoder ring on that one, but it really is finding out where your niche is and playing to that, and then just separating yourself from all the other buzz. As far as quantifying it, it's the idea. For me, it's always the idea and how that is going to put you apart, and then you'll be able to find ways to look to see if it was worth the investment.
The other thing I was going to say here that's come up in the chat is a great example from specifically the industrial space, is Julie Runez from Lennon Design, who's been an attendee of Industrial Marketing Collective Live for a long time. And she's not here today, but yeah, she's got this really great design lab. I've seen pictures of y'all on LinkedIn attending there. And I know a few of you've mentioned in the chat just different collaboration opportunities. Emily was one of those. Emily, I'd be curious, like, just to hear a little bit more, like maybe you can kind of share a little bit like about like what Lennon did in the first place, like what is this place, and then how are you leveraging what Lennon did for your own marketing effort?
Yeah, sure. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Lennon or Julie and Lennon built what they call the Lennon Lab. It's like a collaborative space where you can basically, build proof of concept without having to, go to or figure out which vendors you want to talk to and source components from each of them and then like prototype it at your facility. Obviously there's a lot that takes a lot of time. Maybe your staff is experts in part of that, like some of those components, but not like other components that you need. And so what Lennon has done is just kind of put all those components in one space so you can kind of build those prototypes before you're putting down a lot more money to build the actual thing. And so when Julie was planning this lab, we knew each other thanks to this wonderful community already, and she reached out to me saying, hey, would you like to have your company's machine vision lighting products in this lab, because they were trying to include some machine vision components in there. And so what we've done is loaned some of our products for free, and so our lights are there with like other vision systems or like linear actuators or robots. And so people can go into the lab, test, play, 3D print a prototype or whatever, just to see if it'll, work the way they think it will. And that's been great, not only as like, from a sales perspective, like we have gotten opportunities directly from, people coming here, just kind of discovering we exist or trying our products, but it's also a great space for marketing purposes because, we can hold events or create content in this space, and we have all this equipment that, maybe we don't necessarily have in our facilities also to show how this all can fit together in a system. But the event we're putting on later this month is a lighting technical training. So we've been, putting this year we started doing lighting technical training, and this space just seemed like, a great place to host it because there's, all this great equipment around us. And it's a good location to kind of get people together.
It makes me think of like those makers spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
But on a B2B scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and depending on your audience, the people that are working with your equipment, I mean, they're going to be hypothetically, if that widget that they are working on becomes a fully functional manufactured piece, they're going to want to bring that equipment into the overall process. I was thinking of what you were just talking about, and part of a technical college as well, and kind of having a little spin on that. My son is in a technical school. My younger is going to be starting soon. They didn't want their traditional 4 years. They want to be more hands-on in everything that they do. I love that idea of putting that, giving the people the opportunity to use that equipment, learn with the equipment, and then they're going to grow with that equipment. I think that's a fantastic idea.
And then I think like the build from there is, okay, so what is Julie and Lennon Design getting out of that? Well, I can't tell you that I go a week without seeing some sort of content that's being posted, social or otherwise, from Lennon Design about their lab.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so it's now a content like engine for them. And then Emily, like you guys are hosting this as an opportunity to get together and build like relationships with your prospects. And I'm sure you might snap a few pictures. I'm sure you might like be able to collect a few things along there that's going to bolster your own content creation, which then can get distributed and scaled. And it just continues to showcase you guys in a positive light. So yeah. Lots of ground we covered today. I'm so glad, Dale and Emily, thanks for bringing up the Lennon Design Lab. That is a really great example of how some folks have been thinking out of the box here in our community. So, well, folks, we are just about at time. Chris, thank you so much for coming on and sharing like just your story with us. It's been really cool to hear about the work that you've been part of and what's all to come. And if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Email. Please email me, Chris, CHRIS, at cjcworks.com. You can see the website, cjcworks.com, as well. You can see some of the historical stuff I've worked on. As I mentioned, it hasn't been updated. I apologize. But a lot of those projects on there obviously show a larger scope of what we do. And I say we, it's my company, but I bring on folks as needed. And it just kind of gives you the breadth of what's happening.
It's great. It's great. Well, folks, we are super excited for the next quarter. I guess we're just wrapping up Q2 here, but we've got some great shows planned coming up. Our next one's going to be on June 19th. And I think we're going to be having a conversation about gates. So if you would like to be part of that, join us again on June 19th at 10 a.m. Central Time here in our Zoom room. We would love to see you. And yeah, the other thing that I'll say is next week, we're actually going to be making a big announcement on the Industrial Market Summit front. So if that's something that you've been part of in the past and you want to be part of again, just stay tuned. It's coming.
Wait, I'm not going to be a reoccurring guest on the show here?
And also, Chris is now a host, and he will be here.
Hey, I'm happy to jump in. I can interrogate with the best of them.
Yeah, it's great. We need it.
It's not
Awesome.
paying well, but
That's all right.
All right. Well, so that's really it for us today. But if you want to keep the conversation going on events or otherwise, you can always join us in the collective on Circle. So that's at industrialmarketingcollective.com. If you want to join that community and join any of the discussion boards, just go ahead and DM Alan, myself, or any other gorilla, and we can get you hooked up with that. But Chris, thank you again for joining.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we'll see you all soon. Bye.
All right. Bye now.
thanks everyone. Have a good one.